All right, everybody, welcome back. This is the Horn Takes podcast, your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. I said welcome back. Welcome back to me. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done a show. We tried to do a show last week, and I got it recorded, but I was coughing so much during this show that I just couldn't put it up. There was no way, no how. I don't know. I don't think anybody checked in on the live stream that day, so that's probably a good thing. And I went immediately to YouTube and deleted the live stream, took it down off YouTube. It was just terrible. Like every 2 or 3 words I was hacking. I don't know what we got. I must have got I got something down in New Orleans at the Sugar Bowl besides the loss. I must have got some kind of bug or, there was like that super bug that was going around that wasn't the flu. Wasn't COVID. It wasn't anything they test for, but it made you sick, like you had the flu. I had a little bit of fever one night, but I don't know. I've had COVID. I've had flu. I didn't think it was that bad, but I can't get rid of it. But now at least I can talk without coughing every 10 seconds. So we're back. It's Friday Eve. We're gonna do our national championship game recap. We're going to talk about all these coaching moves that have been going on. Some of them affecting Texas. A lot of them affecting Texas, actually. We'll talk about these hardwood horns a little bit today, folks. Man, oh, man. They are on the struggle bus. We'll have some Texas football updates. And then, folks, there's been some more primetime BS over in Boulder. You know I got to talk about it. There is no secret that I am not a fan of what Coach Prime is doing in Boulder. And every time he gives me a reason, I'm going to talk about it. And a lot of you are not going to like it. And I'm not going to care. Because that's what I do. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can find us at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Or damn near anywhere you listen to podcasts. I think we're on Google. I think we're on Spotify. I think we're on iHeart. I know we're on Apple Podcasts. So surely you can find one of those 4. And if you can't, horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. You can subscribe right there. I'd appreciate it. National championship game recap. So, man, we had this game. I predicted Washington to win this game. I thought Penix Jr. would have another game where he couldn't miss. The dude could throw a football through one window of a 747 doing a low altitude flyby at like 50 yards in the Sugar Bowl. He could not miss. We talked after the Sugar Bowl about how the coverage was not that bad for Texas. I mean, there was a couple times they got beat. Bound to happen. Really good wide receiver room there at Washington. But most of the time, Texas defenders were right there. And it had to be a perfect throw to get the ball in there. And he was just absolutely money in that game. So my thinking was, and I got this prediction like 100% right until I got to the end. And I did my score, and I did why I thought about that score. I said Michigan was going to run the ball down their throat. I said I think Michigan's defensive line is talented enough to get a lot of pressure on Penix. Maybe not sacks, but some meaningful pressure. And Texas got a lot of pressure on Penix. They just did it with one body at a time instead of meaningful pressure with multiple bodies at a time. But I thought Michigan could get multiple guys back there, get him a little bit uncomfortable. I said J.J. McCarthy is not a guy that you want to, if you're a Michigan fan or anybody else for that matter, you don't want J.J. McCarthy trying to win a shootout with Michael Penix Jr. with his arm. And I'm not even dissing. I got a guy on TikTok make a comment like, hey, you just don't know J.J. McCarthy. He was a Heisman candidate. Man, I know all that, but he's not that. I mean, I'm not trying to say he's bad. I'm just trying to say if you looked at both those quarterbacks and you had to pick one and say, you've got a minute to go down the field and get us points to win the national championship, you are not picking J.J. McCarthy, ever. So then I got down to it and I said, you know what? I just feel like Penix Jr. and this wide receiver core are just going to go off again. They are feeling it. They're going to go off again. I like Washington in a shootout type game. I think that's what it's going to be. My man Penix is going to be dropping dimes all over the field, just like he did in the Sugar Bowl. I picked him to win at 38-31, and man, I wasn't even close. Michigan absolutely stuffed it down their throat. That defense absolutely got meaningful pressure on Penix. The only place I was wrong was Penix was just bad. And some of it was Michigan's defense. Like, don't take me wrong. But there were times where Penix had wide open dudes. He wasn't getting pressure. And he just missed. And missed so bad that like a wide open dude couldn't figure out a way to make a catch on a ball. That's basically what that game boiled down to. Michigan shoved it down their throat. Penix Jr. couldn't hit the broad side of the barn after just being brilliant in the Sugar Bowl against Texas. Threw a couple interceptions, got absolutely beat up in that second half, like especially late in that second half. Man, Michigan was getting to him. They were getting bodies on him. Rough outing for Penix Jr., rough outing for the rest of those Washington Huskies. I guess congratulations to Michigan. I mean, they cheated. They cheated to get there. Not sure how I feel about them winning the national championship. The interesting thing, like, nobody's talking about it. I mean, there's been so much crap that's happened since then in college football that nobody is talking about Michigan win. I don't even think Michigan fans care anymore at this point. So ultimately, we lose that one. We go 33-17 on the season for Trace Ocher games. That is pretty damn good, folks. We'll take that on this show. And another college football season is down. That is sad, sad stuff. Basketball is not a sport, so we're now waiting on baseball. And college baseball starts in about a month. I believe for the Texas Longhorns, their first game is February 16th. They open up at home. I can't even remember who they're playing. It's not a big school. So we have about a month that we got to just sit around and not have any sports. But we'll be okay, y'all. We'll be okay. Coaching moves. Bo Davis to LSU. And this is all old news, folks, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. This was a big loss for Texas. There's two ways to look at Bo Davis, and both of them are true. He doesn't recruit all that well. If you look at the guys that Texas has recruited at defensive tackle versus like some of the recruiting battles they've lost, he's mostly landing like 3 and 4 stars. 4 stars very rarely, a lot of 3 stars, completely missing out on the 5-star guys. The flip side of that is he develops talent, and he's done that everywhere he's been. So I don't really know. I mean, he took T'Vondre Sweat. He took Byron Murphy, and both of those guys, 3-star guys, but 3-star guys with a lot of talent, a lot of, there was a lot of room for growth there, a lot of potential in both of those guys to be really good players. And he turned them into probably first-round draft picks. I saw a mock draft the other day that had Byron Murphy ahead of T'Vondre Sweat in the first round. And I think Byron Murphy's really good. Don't get me. I've made the comp for Byron Murphy of that Arnold guy at the Rams. And yeah, I don't know his first name because I don't freaking watch a lot of NFL football because it's a shitty product. But whatever that cat whatever that cat at the Rams, they are put together kind of the same way. They're both tremendously big men, but they do not look like defensive linemen. I mean, they look like a linebacker or something, except they weigh 310 pounds. But I'm kind of surprised to see that he's possibly, at least in one mock draft, ahead of T'Vondre Sweat. First team All-American, consensus All-American. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Either way, Bo Davis had a big hand in that. The interesting thing about this whole LSU Texas Bo Davis thing is that Bo Davis played at LSU. We all know that. But he's told him no a couple times. LSU's been trying to get Bo Davis to come back home for a long time. And as recently as like a week before this news broke that he was going to LSU, he was up and down with it. You know, we have had to deal with this every year since he's been the defensive line coach at Texas. We've had to hear these rumors about LSU. And so again, about a week before this news broke, you start hearing all this stuff come up. Oh, LSU, Bo Davis, is he going to LSU? And he comes out and says, I'm staying at Texas, which we were really happy about because, again, he knows how to develop players. If he could recruit 5 stars and then develop them, man, Bo Davis would be like a $5 million assistant coach. But the ultimate deal, and so there was all kind of speculation, why now? What ultimate deal was his son, who I believe plays at like Eastern Louisiana or Eastern Mississippi. I don't know. Some small school nobody's ever heard of. LSU got him into school. And so he thought, man, this is a good opportunity. And I heard Texas was trying to get him into school, but it just wasn't going to work this semester, if at all. And so Bo Davis now gets to go back home. He gets to coach his son. And I'm not trying to take anything away. I enjoyed I coached my son in baseball, a little bit in football, actually quite a bit in football if you count flag football. And I really enjoyed every single bit of that. Those are good memories for me. I'll always sort of covet those, cherish those memories, good times. So Bo Davis did what he had to go do. I think he got a little bit of a pay raise, maybe I say a little bit, maybe $250,000 a year, which he's already a very highly paid assistant coach. He was already making $1 million a year, $1 million plus. I think now he's at 1.2, anywhere from 1.2 to 1.5 is what I saw. Sucks for Texas, but supposedly Texas has their man. And it's sounding like it's a defensive lineman guy out of the NFL. That's the only thing that makes sense. And the really only thing that makes sense is that it's Rod Wright, who is the Houston Texans defensive line coach right now. That's the only thing that makes sense. So we're putting in a horn take call. We're calling our shot. Rod Wright, defensive line coach for the Houston Texans, as soon as they get knocked out of the playoff at whatever point that is, probably the very next day will be announced. Maybe that afternoon. And we'll talk about this in a minute. They're losing guys because of this. There's people getting antsy because of this Bo Davis exodus. So as soon as humanly possible and appropriate, I think Rod Wright will be announced as Texas's next defensive line coach. And I don't know about his coaching chops. I know he was a hell of a player at Texas. I don't know if he can recruit. I don't know if he's ever had a college job. I just don't know what his career path has been. I know he was a damn good college defensive lineman. He's a Longhorn. I think if Coach Sark likes him, I like him. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But that's our call. Rod Wright. Then the big freaking news that blew the door off college football and probably is the reason nobody is talking about Michigan's national championship at all. Nick Saban retires. Within like a 2 or 3 day period, you had Pete Carroll get fired, Bill Belichick step down from the Patriots. Or maybe he got fired too. I know they just aren't the coaches at those two places anymore. And then Nick Saban retires. Holy shit. And first of all, I have always had a ton of respect for Nick Saban. A lot of Texas fans, I'm kind of in the minority. I'm talking either all the way back in the day, like when he was at LSU, and his early time there at Alabama. A lot of Texas fans didn't have a lot of nice things to say about Nick Saban. He's cheating. He's doing this. He's processing players. By that they mean he's telling guys, hey man, because when you get offered a scholarship, contrary to popular belief, it's not a 4-year scholarship. You have 4 years of eligibility, but the school really every single year is choosing, the coaching staff is choosing to re-up your scholarship and put you on. I mean, they could take a scholarship from somebody anytime they want. So by processing, people were saying, well, he's telling people, yeah, you ain't going to play here. You might as well go somewhere else so he can recruit some more kids in the next class, which I'm sure he absolutely did. Compared to the Wild West that's happening today, that seems like a non-issue to me. But a lot of Texas fans didn't like that. I always defended it, or defended him. He's cheating. He's doing this. There's zero evidence that Nick Saban ever cheated. Did he? I don't know. I'm the type of guy that you got to show me. I'm not just going to listen to you and say, yep, yeah, you're probably right. And then go off on, I'm not going to form an opinion based on hearsay. You got to show me. So once the shock wore off, then it's like, well, who's going to be the next coach at Alabama? And I think Texas fans rightfully kind of started freaking out a little bit. Not that it made a lot of sense for us to do that, but I think you just have to freak out a little bit. Everybody knows that Nick Saban wanted Steve Sarkisian to be his head coach in waiting. At some point, I think it was the year before Texas offered him the job, someone offered him a job. The rumor is it was an SEC school, offered him a head coaching job, and Nick Saban said, you don't want to take that job. I want you to be my head coach in waiting here at Alabama. I'm getting old, getting older. Eventually, I'm going to retire. I want you to take this program over. And I think you look at all the sentiment that Steve Sarkisian obviously has for Alabama and for Nick Saban. It makes a lot of sense that Alabama would have sent Nick Saban out as an emissary and said, get this guy to come be our coach. So Texas fans freaking out. And then, you had Oregon, you had Dan Lanning who turned the job down. The interesting thing about these coaches searches is we will never know what actually happened almost ever. But Dan Lanning turns the job down. Mike Norvell turns the job down. Nothing from Texas or Steve Sarkisian about, and this is for a couple days. Nothing about like, oh, I'm staying at Texas. Some would say, oh, he's not going to say anything because he's in the middle of negotiating a bigger contract. Well, guess what, man? Dan Lanning and Mike Norvell, they're going to leverage that. They're going to leverage all that. But the interesting thing too, I think all three of those guys have the same damn agent representing them. So anyway, Texas fans freaking out. especially when Dan Lanning says no, Mike Norvell says no. The only thing that kind of made me think, he ain't doing that. I know damn well he wasn't the third choice. That's one. Two, why would you go to Alabama to follow Nick Saban? You look at Texas job, you look at the Alabama job. Without Nick Saban, you just look at the two jobs on the surface. Texas is just as good a place to be as Alabama, probably better. Then you add in the fact that Nick Saban was the coach that just retired and the success that he had and the just completely ridiculous expectations that fan base is going to have for the next guy that coaches there. And there is absolutely no freaking way in hell that anybody with a brain would leave a place like Texas to go to Alabama and follow that. So I felt okay. I mean, I felt, there was that little sliver of doubt, right? Where you're like, man, shit, I wish he would say something. I wish he would tweet something. And then I think it was like Sunday afternoon, the Sunday following the retirement announcement and all that you started to see little hook 'em horns from Coach Sark. You started to see his wife posting Texas and horns up and stuff, so I think we were good then. He's got an opportunity to build what Nick Saban built at Bama right here at Texas without any of the crazy expectation that goes along with following a guy like Nick Saban. To me, it's a no-brainer. I think all he was really waiting for and all he was holding out for was to maximize his contract, which I think I'm good with that. I mean, Texas got him on the cheap to begin with because of all his off-the-field problems and the fact that, head coaching just hadn't worked out for him to this point. But Coach Sark is staying, and I could not be more ecstatic about that. I love me some Coach Sark. I've said that all season long. Just, he's the right guy. Sometimes there's just something about the right guy. And I think Steve Sarkisian is the right guy at the right time for Texas football. So ultimately, Alabama hires Kalen DeBoer, Washington's head coach. Before, when I tried to do the show last week, I talked, what if Bama fucks this up? Like, everybody's telling them no. What if they just absolutely screw the pooch on this? What does that do to Bama football? I don't know. I mean, I think you talk to 10 different dudes, you probably get 50-50 answers on Kalen DeBoer. And I'm probably butchering this dude's name. I don't care. Y'all know who I'm talking about. You probably get 50-50 thoughts on if it's a good hire or a bad hire. I don't really know. I mean, I can tell you this. He has zero ties to the Southeast that I'm aware of. And I don't even, I mean, he's won everywhere he's been. He's only done it at a high level with one school. And I say a high level, I just mean a Division I, like a big time Division I school. And he kind of had a guy that was just like a 4,500 yard passer 2 years as the I don't know. I don't know if he can take. I don't know if he goes in there and can turn Jalen Milroe into Michael Penix Jr. I don't know. The other side, the dude's never had a losing season as a head coach. That's phenomenal. I think for him, it's going to all come down to recruiting. And the problem for him right now is there is an absolute mass exodus out of Bama. I think the last figure I saw was 27 players enter the portal. And a lot of them headed to Texas. A lot of them looking at Texas. Talk about that in a little bit. What if Jim Harbaugh is next? The rumor is he interviewed with the Los Angeles Chargers. Would not be surprised if he's interviewed for other opening head coaching jobs. What if he jumps ship? The big talk, if that happens, is that, and I don't know where this comes from, but that Brian Kelly at LSU would be the number one target for Michigan, and he would be willing to go to Michigan. I don't know the backstory of that, but what a nut roll that would be for LSU. Who would they go get? I mean, we're kind of at the end of the coaching carousel. I don't know that there's another sort of top flight type guy that they could go get. And then if there was, what kind of waves does that cause? I mean, it's kind of nuts. I don't know. I feel like probably if Harbaugh was going to go, it would have already happened. But I don't know. I'm not that plugged in with NFL stuff. I don't care. Hardwood horns, folks. What in the fuck is that they keep putting out on the basketball court every single time they play? Texas falls to 12-5, 1-3 in the Big 12. They blew a 16-point lead at home to Central Florida. Central Florida has a decent enough record, but I don't think they're good. I don't think they've beaten anybody. The only Big 12 win that Texas has at this point was a last-second luck fest against Cincinnati, who also has a decent record, but I don't think is a very good team. We'll find out, obviously, more about both of those teams as we get further into this Big 12 schedule. But, man, it is looking rough for Texas Longhorns and Rodney Terry. Only 3 of their final 14 games are against unranked teams. I mean, you look at these last 14 games, I think Texas will be absolutely lucky as hell to go 6-8 over that stretch. And, I don't think that's going to happen. Unless something changes, dramatically. Unless all of a sudden they can quit turning the ball over. They can play some semblance of defense. This team's not making the tournament. There's been all kinds of shit on Twitter today about how this team, can they make the tournament? They got to win 8 games, we think, to make the tournament. No. There is no, I'll eat my words if it happens. I will take my plate of crow, but I don't think there's any way in hell that this Texas team makes the tournament. And just what an absolute letdown of a first full season that would be for Rodney Terry. We all know the Rodney Terry story, man. He takes over for Chris Beard probably about a third into the season last season when all the Chris Beard shit hits the fan. He it runs through the Big 12, wins the Big 12 regular season title, wins the Big 12 tournament title, busts a big old cap upside Kansas's head twice, and blowout wins over Kansas twice. And Kansas just doesn't get blown out that much. And Kansas has pretty much owned the Big 12 since the Big 12's inception in basketball. And they just split their heads wide open 2 times last season. They go into the tournament. They're running hard as hell till Dylan Dessou gets hurt. They go down in the Elite 8 round to Miami. And at that point, everybody's going, man, how do you not give Rodney Terry the job? I think a lot of people, listen, we said it. We have our doubts about Rodney Terry. We have our concerns about Rodney Terry. He's been only a 500 coach ever. That's all he's done. Can he be, he's doing all this with a bunch of really good players that Beard brought in. Can he do this on his own? And then on the other side, he was the real reason all these guys came and this, that, and the other. You can't not hire him. And I think, you go to the Elite 8. That was basically his whole season. Basically. The only thing he didn't do is recruit all those guys to be there and start the season. And he didn't like choke out his wife or his girlfriend or his significant other, whatever. So it's hard to say you couldn't like make him the coach, but I would have preferred, and again, I'm not alone here, I would have preferred a coaching search. And I would have preferred, if you were going to offer that guy the head coaching job, that you didn't go all out the way I think Chris Del Conte went all out with his contract. I think his contract's for like 5 years. I think he's making like $5 million a year. And I'm probably way off on all this shit, but I think it was a pretty long contract. I mean, maybe not long in terms of, I don't know. I would have said like, dude, we'll give you like 2 years and then we'll see what happens. I think his contract is 5. And I think what we're seeing this year, and he lost recruits immediately. And it was 2 big-time 5-star guys that were lined up for Chris Beard. And he couldn't keep them, which makes me think, maybe it wasn't him recruiting. Maybe all these people that were saying he's the recruiting guy, he's the guy that's bringing people in, maybe they're full of shit. And so now you've got a lot of Texas fans running around talking about how this is a bad hire. We need to start looking now for a head coach. And I don't disagree. I think it's a bad. I don't know that again. I feel like there should have been a search to see what was out there, see who would be willing to play ball. But I don't mind the fact that they hired him based off of what he did. I just don't think the long contract was appropriate. So bad hire, probably not. Maybe reckless hire. That's a better way to call it. That is a better way to describe what happened. So I don't know, man. I don't think this team makes I don't think this team makes the tournament. I don't even know if this team makes the NIT. I don't know what the criteria are for that. But they are not good at basketball. And then there was this whole horns down thing the other night. So Central Florida comes into Austin, the Moody Center. They beat Texas after being down by a shit ton, damn near 20 points, which is embarrassing enough on its own. And then, they won. They're doing the horns down in their little huddle. I think maybe I didn't watch any of this game, by the way, because I'm done with basketball. Like they lost me when Texas Tech came into Austin and figured out a way to win that game. And actually, they blew out Texas. So, and Tech's not a good team, by the way. Like that was the point where I realized this Texas basketball team is just not good, and that's okay. Plus, basketball is not a sport. So anyway, UCF wins. They're horns down in it. I think they were horns down in the crowd or something as they're going through the handshake line. Rodney Terry does not like this at all and starts telling them to stop. Don't do that. Don't do that. He's pissed. And then I guess somebody asks him about it after the game. He says that's classless. We don't do that. I don't think he's wrong for saying that. I think it is classless. I think the joke is old, man. Like you're not special because you can do horns down. You know what I mean? Like it's been done. It's been done for many, many years now. And it's gotten to the point now where teams just do it. And they have no rivalry with Texas whatsoever. They just do it because like they see everybody else do it. It's like a bunch of fucking idiots that like can't think on their own. They can't think on their own. And they're just horns down and their dicks off, like because they played Texas. It's stupid. So I don't think he's and going through the handshake line, especially like if they were horns down in the players, I think like okay, horns down in your huddle, horns down with your fans that may be there, your band, whatever. Okay. But like doing it directly to the other team, I feel that's classless. That's not very good sportsmanship. But we're all about sportsmanship at the Horn Takes podcast. And so I don't think he's wrong at all for calling that out and saying that's classless. But this is going to cause another round. You already started to see it on Twitter today. Another round of the all Texas fans are soft. They can't handle horns down, this, that, and the other. The comparisons to Mac Brown, which again are absolutely fucking absurd, because Mac Brown could give two fucks less about the horns down. All Mac Brown said was, if you're going to penalize my guy for holstering a pistol, which is what Texas Tech does, they put the guns up, right? If you're gonna penalize me for 15 yards for holstering my pistol against Texas Tech, then you should be penalizing these other stupid fucks every single time they throw the horns up. And that is a completely valid discussion. It's a completely valid thought process. And if you don't think so, you're a big fucking dumbass, and I don't care what you think anyway. So all that's going around. Texas is soft. It's just a bad look, Rodney Terry. I mean, bless your heart. I think you're in over your head. And then now you're complaining about horns downs happening. I don't know. But there's guys out there that will fight you to the death that say, you got to give this guy at least 2 years. I don't know, man. We're headed into the SEC. The other interesting thing is there's people out there that say you should have never fired Chris Beard. That's an interesting one. I think with that, for me, I don't know what the school knows that I don't know. I would not condone beating one's wife or choking one's wife. I just feel like that whole deal, there's something shitty about that whole deal. And the fact that another I thought Chris Beard would eventually get back to D1 coaching, but I didn't think it would be literally the next season. So something stinks about the way that whole thing went down. Texas football updates, man. We got 3 big-time wide receiver commits in the portal. Silas Bolden out of Oregon State. Not a big guy, but a ridiculously fast guy. He's gonna make some waves in the return game this year, I believe, for Texas. Isaiah Bond out of Bama. You guys might know Isaiah Bond. If you don't know who he is, the guy that caught the Milroe Miracle against Auburn. Really good player, lots of speed. Matthew Golden out of Houston, caught 2 touchdowns against Texas. Real good player, lots of speed. So the wide receiver room at Texas is filthy with talent. Kind of makes me wonder, though, if we're going to see some transfers. When this portal comes open again, I just can't imagine we don't see some guys out of that wide receiver room go somewhere else. Because let's be real, Sark is not bringing these guys in to not compete for the starting job. He thinks they're going to come in and win these jobs. And he doesn't play a lot of wide receivers. They pick up a commit from linebacker Kendrick Blackshire out of Bama. More Bama fallout. A lot of it's coming to Texas. The Sark pipeline to Bama is wide open. Kendrick Blackshire was this dude out of Duncanville a few years ago, that was like 18 years old and looked like a 40-year-old, like a 30-year-old bodybuilder. Hasn't had a great career at Bama. I don't know that this guy comes and starts at Texas, honestly. David Benda's coming back. Anthony Hill Jr. just won Freshman All-American awards. And they basically play 2 linebackers 99% of the time. I don't know. Maybe this guy helps out on special teams. Maybe he's a depth guy. Maybe he's a glue guy. I don't know. We're going to find out. He said, I'm going to Texas because they give me the best shot at playing at the next level. Sometimes change is a very good thing. Sometimes change puts you in the right mindset to go do things you hadn't done previously or didn't think you could do. Maybe this is what happens with Mr. Blackshear. I don't know, Blackshear. I don't know how you say his name. Blackshear. Upcoming visitors in the transfer portal. Cornerback Jabbar Muhammad's been on campus here recently. A lot of buzz that Oregon is out of it. They will not get a visit. Alabama is supposedly still going to get a visit, maybe. But the word on the street, and again, my street is Horns 247, folks. I am not in the streets. So when I say like the word on the street, what I'm really saying is Horns 247. What I see on there is all positive stuff. Ben Urasek, tight end from Stanford, is supposedly going to visit Texas. Amari Niblack from Bama, tight end, is supposedly going to visit Texas. We'll see, man. I wish some more defensive tackles would be visiting Texas because 2024 high school defensive tackle DeAndre Robinson, 4-star. I loved this guy. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. He tells Texas, man, I want out of my letter of intent. He does not show up. He does not show up when the early what do you call them? When all the guys come in spring. So the guys that have already graduated high school, they can come in spring. Early enrollees. He did not show up for that. And a couple days later, Texas lets him out of his letter of intent. He's obviously fallout from Bo Davis. Moving on. So you win some, you lose some. He's one we lost. I would have really, really liked to have him. I think he's going to be a really good ball player. Huge Junior Day coming up for Texas. Over 75 recruits from the 2025 through 2027 classes will be on hand. That's big. And then more of the coach shuffle. Dwayne Akina, and this was huge for me, man. So Sarkisian hires this Nansen guy. Nansen. He was the defensive coordinator at Arizona to come be the linebacker coach at Texas, which was interesting in and of itself. And then all these rumors about Dwayne Akina start going. And I'm like, man, if Dwayne Akina comes back, Dwayne Akina, for those of you that don't know, kind of the guy that made Texas be called DBU back in the day. Really, really good defensive backs coach. So I was like, man, if that happens, right on, right? This is a good start to the year. It happens. But then a couple days later, apparently, he's going back. He's gonna go ahead and stay at Arizona. They hired their new coach, and their new coach says he got a decent, what did he call it? A decent commitment from Dwayne Akina that he would be staying at Arizona. And I don't think I've seen anything official, which I guess gives me some hope, but not a lot. So that's kind of a roundup on Texas football for right now. Who knows what? I mean, they've got the number 3 class. They've got a very highly rated transfer class, despite the fact that they don't have a lot of incoming transfers like some other schools. Let's talk about one of those schools. It is full-on prime time up in Colorado right now. The prime time is off the chain. And honestly, it's fucking ridiculous. The culture in that program, listen, folks, just like we said it would be, the culture is straight ass at Colorado, and right at the front leading this long line of ass culture, like cultists, is prime time and his goofy ass sons. Listen, folks, they have the 106th ranked recruiting. All I heard when Deion Sanders took this job from anybody that was jumping someone's ass for just saying, man, I don't know if this is a good hire or not, was all he can recruit. Primetime can recruit. Who doesn't want to go play for primetime? It's like, that was the mantra. Well, apparently nobody does, because he has the 106th ranked recruiting class in the country this year. 6 high school commits, folks. You cannot build a program that's successful with 6 high school recruits. It ain't going to happen. He gutted the roster last year when he got to Colorado, And the thing he did, he just did it in a real shitty way, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. 60-something guys, they cycled in and out of that program. He currently has 22 transfers. Obviously, he has the number one transfer class because he's got 22 of them. He can't recruit. His kids are over in Paris doing runway shows, supposedly during the first team meeting. I mean, if any other player on that team would have went up to Coach Prime and said, "Hey, Coach, I want to go do a runway show instead of being here when meetings start in the spring. Is that cool?" He would have said, "Hell no, that ain't cool." And if someone just went and did it, they probably get kicked off the team. But it's okay for Shiloh and Shadur to go overseas and walk up and down a damn carpet thing doing a runway show with a bunch of goofy ass looking clothes on, carrying bags and shit. You got to be kidding me. If I was a Colorado fan, and I'm talking about the real ones, I'm not talking about the fake ones that are going to defend Prime no matter what he does. They can't see the forest through the trees. They don't realize that he's a big fucking fraud. I'm talking about the legitimate Colorado fans, a lot of whom have thrown a shit ton of money at this program since they hired Deion Sanders. I would be fucking livid. The ROI is not good on Deion Sanders right now at Colorado. And I've been saying this, guy, he's not going to be there. Deion is staying till his sons are done, and then he's going to be done all of a sudden. God's going to call him to something new, and it ain't going to be Colorado football. And what Colorado's going to be left with is a worse fucking program than they had before he got there. Because you know what? All these kids that are transferring in, they're all going to fucking transfer out the second Deion Sanders ain't there. He didn't recruit anybody. There ain't nobody that really wants to be at Colorado there. Not a fucking soul. So that's what y'all get, man. We've been talking about all this bullshit hype. All this primetime shit that, you know, people conveniently call just a what do they call a confident black man. I've been told multiple times I'm just scared of a confident black man, and I'm not scared of anything. I just don't like an arrogant cult following, just shitty human being that just isn't in it for himself. I mean, he's totally in it for himself. He's not in it for the university. He's not in it for the kids. There's 2 kids on that team he gives a fuck about, and there's one other person in that whole program he gives a fuck about, and that's himself. Y'all made y'all's bed. You're going to have to sleep in it, Colorado. But, man, this shit is about to get ugly in Colorado. Even heading to the Big 12, man. It's going to get rough. Next week, we'll talk some Texas baseball. We talked about it earlier in the show. We're less than a month out. And I think this Texas baseball team got a chance to be pretty good this year. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow and subscribe. It will not cost you guys a thing, but we'd appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good Friday Eve, a good weekend. The cold snap is over. Thank the Lord, right? Y'all get hooked.